Alright, so we've got a few Final Fantasy stories to get through today. There was a new event announced for Final Fantasy XVI. There was also a really cool piece of information in regards to 16's fast travel and side quest system that I somehow missed from last week's State of Play, but this is what happens when developers maybe overshare information when it comes to their games. You're just bound to miss something eventually. And then we've got a cool update on a potential returning character for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which sounds very exciting. So if any of that sounds cool to you, feel free to click the like button, and if you want to stay up to date with more Final Fantasy news, feel free to click the subscribe button as well. I'm on the journey of reaching 1,000 subs, and I'm a little bit more than halfway there, and any bit of help really helps out the channel. And this is shaping up to be a pretty big year for Final Fantasy. We've got 16 coming out soon, 7 Rebirths hype train is going to get going, and then there's that fabled Final Fantasy IX remake, which could potentially be announced this year. So there's a lot to look forward to. So starting with that event for Final Fantasy XVI, Square has announced that on June 11th, they will be holding a pre-launch celebration event for Final Fantasy XVI. Now, this event will be live streamed, but there's no word on if it's going to be open to the general public. I kind of get the vibe that this will be an industry event where you'll have celebrities, influencers, the developers, the cast of the game, and a number of gaming outlets there to cover the event and interview people. I wouldn't be shocked if they had demo kiosks there for Final Fantasy XVI as well. And speaking of demo, this event is 11 days before the game is set to launch, and we know that Yoshi P said he wanted the demo to come out around 2 weeks before the game's official launch to help carry that hype over to the game's release. So I would not be shocked if the demo gets dropped on us that day as well, if it hasn't hit already before then. We could also potentially get the game's final trailer, and that's the launch trailer, that same day, which again, Square Enix launch trailers tend to be very spoilery, so I may not cover it depending on the content in the trailer, but that'll be kind of a case-by-case basis, and I'll see what the internet says in regards to spoilers. But this event is exciting because we're getting closer to the release of 16, but also, once Final Fantasy 16 is out and we can play it, that makes way for the main event for myself and a lot of other people, and that is the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth hype train. So we will get to that 7 Rebirth news in just a second, but to kind of go back to 16, there was a really cool update in regards to the game's side quest system and how they're going to handle getting to NPCs and doing side quests. So all of the side quests in 16 are going to be in one location, and that is Cid's hideout, the Hideaway. So what's really nice is that you can fast travel to these NPCs that are going to be giving you the side quests. You no longer have to look at the world map and track down someone who's in the ass end of nowhere, get their side quest, do it, and then run back to them. You go to the Hideaway or fast travel to the Hideaway or the NPC giver, get the quest, probably fast travel as well to the quest location, do the quest, and then immediately fast travel back to that same NPC. So it's incredibly streamlined. It's going to be so much easier. Sometimes in games that are open world, you get a side quest, you have to track down the NPC, you get the quest, then you have to go to the area where the side quest is at, complete it, and then maybe you have to either run all the way back or you have to find a fast travel spot that's close to the NPC that gave you the quest, but in 16 is all going to be streamlined, which is really, really nice. 7 Remake also kind of did something similar with some of their side quests where you still had to track down the NPC, but once you finished the quest, you got the option to warp back to the quest giver so you could just complete it right then and there. Now, getting to that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth news. So recently in English, they released the Final Fantasy novel that focuses on Tifa and Aerith called Traces of Two Pasts. And again, in that novel, they really focus on Tifa's backstory. Now, this may contain spoilers, not only for the novel, but where we're going with Rebirth. So you've been warned. So anyway, in this novel, they focus on the relationship between Tifa and her martial arts master, Richard Zangan, or Zangan, or Zangan. Depending on your level of literacy, I'm sure if he does return in Rebirth, we will finally learn how to properly say this man's name. But he is Tifa's master. Everything she knows about fighting and being disciplined, she learned from him. And this novel really delves deep into that first meeting and how he immediately wanted to take her under his wing so he could train her. So she owes a lot to this man who saved her life on many occasions. There was meeting her as a child and training her, and there was saving her the night of the attack in Nibelheim with Sephiroth. So this is really interesting because the novel points out that he is still alive and we could potentially see him again. And what's cool is, if anyone out there is familiar with the Final Fantasy VII New Threat mod for PC, you'll know why I'm excited. So just a quick rundown on the New Threat mod. It's a mod for the PC version of the original Final Fantasy VII that updates the game's graphics. It allows you to change the game's music, but they also add new enemies and new side quests to that game, and they also changed the way characters play. Characters in New Threat have actual classes now. Like Barrett is essentially the defensive tank of that game, so everyone kind of has a special class. Materia has been changed a little bit as well, but they also added a bunch of new side quests, and one of those side quests included finding Zangan, tracking him down, meeting with him, having a conversation, but it ultimately leads to a boss battle where it's Tifa versus her master, and she needs to beat him. It's kind of like a final test for her, the things to come. Like, can she beat the man that saved her life and trained her? And if she can, that'll prove that she's ready for what's coming with Sephiroth. So it's a really cool, interesting mod for Final Fantasy VII. I'd highly suggest you track it down to play it yourself or watch someone else's playthrough. I know Maximilian dude played through that New Threat mod back in 2019, and it was just an absolute joy to experience that mod with him and his chat, and just to see how different and how richer they made 7. It's really exciting. And having finished 7 Remake, it really seems like the developers at Square really took notice of the New Threat mod and took a lot of inspiration from it. You know, in 7 Remake, characters kind of have their own class now. Barrett is very much the defensive tank of that game. Materia works a little bit differently, so it definitely seems like they took inspiration from New Threat, and I think they're going to do the same thing in Rebirth. So the potential for her master, Zangan, to return in Rebirth, and maybe it's a part of the major story, maybe it's a side quest, maybe we track him down and we learn more about the events of the attack in Nibelheim, which would then lead the party to question Cloud's story even more. Like, this isn't matching up to what this man is saying. This guy is an honorable dude. He trained Tifa, he saved her life. Cloud, your story is just not adding up here. And it could lead again to a boss battle where it's just one-on-one, Tifa versus her master. And maybe beating him unlocks, you know, a special ability for Tifa, or a limit break, or a different weapon, or a piece of armor. That sounds really exciting. So with Zangan still being alive, he's most likely going to return in Rebirth, and I'm really excited to see what they do with him in that game. And I cannot wait for that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth hype train to really take off. Now, that's the video. In the comments down below, let me know what you guys think of this Final Fantasy XVI launch event. What do you think they're going to do there? Do you think they're going to have the demo? Do you think it's just going to be like a big party? How do you feel about the side quests being streamlined in 16? And on a scale from 1 to lucky number 7, how excited are you for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.